that or accept that, he's entitled to. But what he's done is set up a fake, in other words, a false assertion. In other words, that we'd asserted that he had said things on Facebook, which we have not asserted.
I don't think it necessarily just going to continue more. And I think what we need to see is that this is what's stated in the book, and this is also what's stated that someone posted. Because that is never been taken to the evidence in chief. So yes, that's all I'm saying. Yes.
So then, in other words, the complainant's case has not been that you have posted something on Facebook. The complainant's case, as written in the book, refers to supporters. Now, at page 208 of the book, I gather that you would not like a copy of the book in front of you, but you're welcome to change your mind.
I don't read racist Bibles.
Let's just pause there for a second. I've noticed you have a certain habit, which is that when things get difficult for you, you start alleging racism. Am I right that that's part of your strategy?
You will never be difficult to me. Not you, not those who came before you. None of you can be difficult to me.
I don't intend on being difficult.
You have met a different animal. Never.
Let's proceed. So at page 208 of the book, it says, meanwhile, a Malema supporter started publishing updates about farm attacks on Malema's Facebook page every few hours. The page had about 12,000 followers at the time. One of the posts stated 3,000 farmers dead since '94. We lost more people than that. We are far from being even. So kill the boer, kill the farmer. Then further down it says, another Malema supporter posted on his public page, you fucking white pigs, Malema is our leader. He will kill Zuma within 6 weeks. Look, go ahead, my fellow black people. We will then take our land, and every trespasser, namely white whores, we will rape them, and rape them until the last breath is out. White kids will be burned, specifically those in Pretoria and Vrystaat. Men will be tortured while I take a video clip and spread it on YouTube. Colin, we should stand together and rape these fuckers. It is true that Malema said, silently we shall kill them. Police will stand together. Our leader will lead us to take our land over. Mandela will smile again. White knives, we are coming for you. Households will be broken into and families will be slaughtered. Now, the nature of this states that it's posted on your page. Now, if I can just put on the screen. This is Facebook. And this is a number of supporter pages that are in your name. Is that correct?
I must say what?
Those are supporter pages on Facebook.
I don't know how Facebook works. I don't know if these are supporters or these are Facebookers or what. I don't know.
So let me ask you this then. These comments are made on one of these pages. Not alleging that you own the page or that you have control of the page, but will you denounce these statements?
What if these comments are written by Roots?
Written by?
What if they are written by Roots? What if these comments are written by Roots, my lord? Because Facebook, like any other social media pages, you can develop a fake account and spread hatred and lies. Now you are subjecting this court and all of us to rumor mongering and gossip that derives from one, my lord, a fake book account of Julius Malema. We can sit here confidently because they've not led any evidence to prove that is my page. One, you are being made to sit here to discuss comments on a fake Facebook account. That is discrediting this court and ridiculing this court. To come here with an account that is not confirmed, that it's an authentic account, and subject this court to discuss comments passed on a fake account. That is undermining all of us.
Your Lordship, and I'm sorry I interrupted you. I thought you were done. I apologize, Mr. Malema. Again, in fairness to the witness, there can't be a shifting of what the facts are for convenience. The assertion by counsel for the complainant is that there is no allegation that you own Facebook. That's of course not true. Because if you read page 208 again, it says, meanwhile, a Malema supporter started publishing updates about farm attacks on Malema's Facebook page every few hours. Now, assuming that was a mistake, the assertion is repeated on the same page another Malema supporter posted on his public page. Now, we are clear that's the positive assertion. I then crossed Mr. N's roots on this. And then he does a shift, these nuanced shifts that are fundamental. He then says, I did not exclude the possibility that he does not have Facebook. But on a cold reading of this text, it's a firm assertion. So in fairness to the witness, the version that has been presented in evidence in chief must be put to the witness. It can't chop and change for convenience. If that's the assertion, they must stick to that assertion. It can't now be, well, that's not their version. That's exactly the version.
It's very simple, my lord. What we've shown on the screen is Facebook, the website, and that there are a number of pages that say Julius Malema on them. The witness has said he doesn't run those pages, doesn't own those pages. The question I've put to him is a very simple one. Will he denounce the contents of what is said? He might say, I don't know who that person is, but what they've said, I denounce it or I support it. It's a very simple question.
It's belittling for me to come sit here and be asked to condemn the comments of a fake account, my lord. I must be condemning comments of computers, of things that we can't confirm if these are real human beings, if these things are not written by the same people because they want to discredit us.
The essence of your answer, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. President. The essence of your answer is you have no knowledge about that Facebook page. You don't know who has actually posted. There are possibly other people that may have posted the statements on that Facebook. So you deny that. The question that's now being asked is, would you condemn them? And as I understand, your answer is also, I can't condemn because I don't know what this comes from.
I can't condemn faceless people.
That's the answer, Mr.
I understand. So in other words, you do not condemn those statements. Is that your answer?
No, I can't condemn statements of fake accounts.
Okay. I'd like to turn to another statement that was made. You played footage, your counsel played footage of Thabo Mbeki at the TRC, and at the end of that there is a statement by one of the commissioners about Simbamba. Now, the impression that's created is that Simbamba, the lullaby, is about breaking the neck of a baby. That's the impression that you've created. Is that correct?
Created by who?
Well, by the footage. Is that what the footage states?
Say, I don't know what that song says. It's in Afrikaans. And my counsel tried to interpret it, and I said, if that is the interpretation, it sounds violent. I
Yes.
can't make my children sleep through singing violence to them. But if you want to put my counsel on trial, you're free to do that.
I'm just going to put to you what the song is actually about, which is that the song Simbamba refers to Sin Mamba, which is to see the snake Amamba, and it is about breaking the snake's neck. It's not about breaking the baby's neck. I just want to put that to you.
As learned colleagues, you can have that discussion over tea. I didn't make those utterances.
I understand. Then I'd shown you a video of people wearing EFF regalia at Senegal, singing the terms, kill the Boer. And I asked you, are they EFF members? And you said, I don't know. I haven't checked their cards. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Okay. You see, there's members, there's supporters, there's voters. These three are different categories of people. But in Senegal, you run a risk, I said to my Lord, of saying this guy who's wearing black and all of that, he's a member of the EFF. And then this guy comes the following day in public and says, I lied under oath that he's a member of the EFF. He is not a member of the EFF, and he denounces me. So I can't sit here and take a risk of being accused of lying under oath because I can't confirm his membership.
Yes. Now, I'm very glad you drew that distinction for us about members, supporters, and voters. Do you exercise influence over your members?
Yeah.
And over your supporters?
Yeah.
And over the voters?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, outside of this court, are there members that are outside this court?
Yes.
Are there supporters as well?
Absolutely.
And I assume they're also voters?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to show you a video of those members, supporters and voters outside of this court.
Your Lordship, we're back here. The agreement earlier was whether this will form part of evidence or not will be determined by an application that my counsel undertook to present to the court, and then we'll deal with it there and then. Here we see it being played now as evidence.
My Lord, I think it's important that Mr. Malema is given an opportunity to respond to it. There have been new videos that have been added throughout the course of these proceedings, new documents. No. This is, in other words, this is one of the questions before this court is what Mr. Malema's views are on singing the chant, shoot to kill, kill the Boer, and what the party's views are on that. And I've shown evidence of the party, and there's a dispute as to whether it's supporters or members in Senegal singing the chant, kill the Boer. And now I want to put to the witness further iterations of that. He should be given an opportunity to respond to it, to be fair to him.
I'm not sure, because I say, it seems to me, and we've gone dealt with this complaint earlier, if I recall, unless it's a different video, the complaint that members of the Afriforum were blocked from exiting the gate, and the whole issue that led to the issue of contempt. As I saw those two complaints, they were contemporary complaints and not complaints that falls within the pleaded case. And if we go that route, it means I will then have to take that evidence into account. And the question is that evidence properly before the court? I then ruled that for that evidence to be properly before the court, you need to bring an application so that I can then consider whether that be properly to be considered. And until then, I'm not sure whether it's proper to then put the evidence before this court, because whichever way you go, as soon as you start cross-examining the witness on that video, that means that evidence is now before this court. And this court's mind may be influenced by what then gets presented. And that may fall short of the proper evaluation of evidence.
Well, my Lord, let me put it this way, that the video is used in two different ways. The video is used partly to ensure that proceedings in this matter are run peacefully. In other words, that all members of the legal teams will be able to access the court freely in and out. That was the first reason for the evidence being shown, and so that a ruling on that could be obtained. The second was to say, this is evidence of the party singing the song in dispute, and it must form part of this court's record. Now, an application can be brought, and the question as to whether that evidence should be considered by this court can be determined in argument. Now, at this juncture, in other words, what this court could do is, in argument, make a finding as to whether this evidence ought to be excluded, and then I presume Mr. Malema's response to the evidence could also be excluded, but that the opportunity is now given to the witness to respond to it, and that the court can then disabuse its mind of it in the event that it finds that that evidence is inappropriate.
What can this evidence be admitted?
Yes.
Or we listen to, let's not say admitted, we listen to.
Yes.
And it's very for whether it is accepted, be considered
Yes.
at the end of the case.
Well, two reasons, my lord. The first is your directive was that this will not be streamed in court for purposes of this trial because I have not consulted client on this. Now he's put in a position where he's asked to comment on something he has not had the benefit of consulting with client on. And then your ruling, your lordship, was, for that reason, the fundamental right, constitutional right, that client is entitled to engage with counsel in the subject matter before he's put on the stand on it. So I'm simply saying I'm just going by the ruling of your lordship.
The ruling is that was supported by the court deals with the issue of the people who are appearing on the video.
Yes.
Who were singing outside the gate of the court. And I said it would be unfair for the complainant to play the video and adduce evidence in relation to the conduct of people who have not been given an opportunity to say, yes, indeed, it's us there, and what we were doing, were we singing or were we not singing. That's the essence of the ruling that I made.
Yes.
Now, yes, I hear what you're saying. In the case of the present witness, Mr. Malema, we may have not been able to consult with him about the video, which brings a different thing to it. But what I was putting to you is the proposition made by Mr. Oppenheimer is the evidence can be heard, and it can then, at the end of the hearing, be weighed as to whether it's evidence to be admitted or whether any weight should be granted, should be given to that evidence.
Well, your lordship, if the understanding at the start was what my learned friend is proposing, perhaps there's something to be said. The difference is this. The purpose of this video being played on the particular date was played was for one reason and one reason only. It was to ask your lordship to make a ruling about access to court. It had absolutely nothing to do with it being evidence. Now for the first time we're hearing that it's supposed to be part of the evidence. What we would have done if that was the understanding, my client is going to ask about who these members are. What song are they singing? Who are they? Can you identify them? On the spot. Surely that can't be right, particularly if it's going to have an implication on the outcome. All I'm simply saying is, your lordship, let's focus. Let's stick to your ruling. Your ruling was this can't be used as evidence until a proper application has been brought.
Okay. Mr. Oppenheimer.
My lord, I had a few things. The one is, my learned friend says, this is a surprise to us that this evidence would be used. It was the complainant's case that there were two reasons. The one is the proceedings, and the other one is that it must be included as evidence in the case. The second is that an application must be brought to determine at the argument stage whether it should be included or not. In other words, the court can disabuse itself of it. So, and this video has been provided to the other side from an earlier stage. They've had the opportunity to consult with it. The video has been available to them.
But the video was introduced for a different purpose.
Yes. It was introduced for two purposes, my lord. The one was to protect the integrity of these proceedings, and the other one is to show that the party sings the song Kill the Boer. And it's, Mr. Malema can respond to that. I don't intend on asking him to identify the particular members. I'm just going to ask him to respond to...
Well, let me ask this question. This video, was it ever discovered?
Yes.
In terms of the pleadings?
Well,
at the beginning of this trial?
Well, that's not possible because, in other words, it occurs during the trial.
That's the point I'm trying to get to in trying to evaluate what approach one should adopt. If it wasn't discovered and it was introduced for those two purposes that you referred to, it was then allowed to be played in the court on the basis and the understanding that there was a problem that the court needed to attend to, which was members of Afriforum were being, or their movement and access to the court was being interfered with by members of the EFF. That was the real purpose for which it was introduced. But again, I go back to the ruling I made to say this video can only be entertained to be included in the main case once a proper application has been put before the court. Now, until that happens, or until that ruling is set aside, that ruling stands, that this video should not be used until the court has applied its mind as to its admission into the main case.
Your Lordship, to page 18 of the complainant's bundle. At paragraph 44, the complainant says, it is not the position that the instances referred to above are the only instances where the respondents have engaged in hate speech, incitement to cause violence and harm, and racial discrimination and targeting. The above instances are recorded on video, and they demonstrate some of the instances where the respondents have been guilty of hate speech. If this matter is referred to an open court hearing, the complainant reserves the right to supplement its papers, induce evidence to include other relevant information. In other words, the nature of equality court proceedings is different to ordinary civil litigation. It's an inquiry. It's not a purely mere adversarial system. Throughout this matter, the documents that have been referred to have been supplemented continuously. New things have been added. This is...
I understand that, Mr. Oppenheimer, there is an instance where I think there was the book, the other book which was introduced, came into the middle of it. But that was because both parties were in agreement as to what approach to adopt. But here now, the court is faced with a situation where there is a disagreement between the parties, and that's why I'm raising this question of whether the rules. I did not understand that this court necessarily means that all the rules applicable to guide the court in dealing with disputes and matters that arises has been put aside. Those rules still apply, but my understanding of the law is in applying those rules, the court has to be alive and adopt a much more flexible approach to dealing with the issues. But here we're dealing with a fundamental issue that relates to a witness who firstly wasn't present and when this incident occurred. Secondly, that evidence has not been formally admitted in court, and the court has expressly stated that it could not be admitted. But let me propose this as a way to resolve this and move forward. Mr. Kasiboto, let me address myself to yourself. You've had my view about what the status of this video is. The defendant's, the applicant, the complainant's case now is we would like to play this video and we would like the witness to comment on it. Your complaint is, yes, one, the court has already ruled that it must not be played until there's application to admit. Two, that this witness has not had an opportunity to be taken through what the video is about. That seems to be fair. However, at the same time, one has to balance that also with what they have pleaded in their papers and what was the agreement between the parties, not only here in court but also in chambers. In fact, it was moved by both of you in chambers that I should be flexible in terms of allowing materials being introduced as we go along. And as I understand, that's in the spirit of why this court was constituted in the manner that it has by the legislature. What if the ruling that, or let me put it this other way, what if we were to say, in as far as this video is concerned, the use of this video is concerned, that matter stands clear. Once you have had an opportunity to consult with the witness, Mr. Malema, on the video, then that could form part of the application that could be brought. In other words, that application that I already ruled upon could be had. And if I find that indeed this video can be used in the main case, not in the interlocutory that was brought, then we may request Mr. Malema to come back What's your view on it?
I've got a view on it, Your Lordship. If the court is so minded, can I literally take a minute to consult with my attorneys, take instructions, try and persuade them to my view, and then respond to Your Lordship in literally a minute?
My Lord, I also have a suggestion that might obviate the need for us returning back for a second day.
So they can hear you when you make this list. Yes.
Your Lordship, I've taken instructions from my attorneys. My initial view was I have no issues with the video being played, precisely because, well, the client has testified to it. Sorry, Your Lordship. Yes. So the position is this, Your Lordship. We are happy for the video to be played, subject, of course, to what you said. And I've just been told now that client's view is that it should be played. But my proposal is this, and of course I'm supposed to echo instruction, but my advice to him now is let's be allowed an opportunity to view the video, perhaps at tea time, go over it, have a discussion, and only after tea time will we be allowed to comment on it, not at this stage.
Of course, Mr. Oppenheimer then comes to another issue of granting the permission to consult with Mr. Malema, because Mr. Malema is now a witness of the court.
My Lord, I think that's a very fair solution, and that, in other words, the consultation is constrained to that, in other words, this issue. I think that's fair. Then it means that we can proceed. I will pause this question until after tea. They can have an opportunity to consult and talk about it. I think that's fair. My learned friend has also sent me a video this morning, which he would like to show to Mr. Malema to lead in a sort of form of evidence in chief. And I thought that the appropriate juncture to do that would be after cross-examination, that my learned friend can then ask the court if he can lead that evidence in chief, that if the court allows it, that I would be then given an opportunity to cross-examine on it, and then my learned friend can continue with re-examination.
Isn't it complicated things? Because now you examine him on a video which has been contested. They then consult. By that time, water would have long been under the bridge. We know what re-examination means. Re-examination is simply to clarify.
Yes.
Although quite often in this court, practitioners tend to just abuse that privilege or right. They then go into like it's now beginning the case from the beginning. But the principles of re-examination will basically clarify what may have been raised. So what it means in relation to this video, you're taking away their rights of leading evidence and making sure that their client understands what the purpose and the issues raised in the video is. So I just think maybe the best would be that if you can hold back your question on this aspect, that at tea break, we allow them to look at the video, and then with the provider that they're given permission to consult with their client on this specific issue only. They are only given permission to deal with the video. And I want to emphasize, because the last time we issued the ruling, and there's a problem with the oral ruling sometimes, is that the purpose of consulting with Mr. Malema was sitting as a witness. It's only limited to the video of what happened on, was it on Tuesday or Wednesday? Sorry.
It was the 9th.
The 9th, yes. What happened on the 9th at the entrance of the gate of the court, that would be only limited to that.
Maybe if you can assist Your Lordship, if you don't mind. I've been overruled by
My client is happy for the video to be played now and to be questioned on it now. The second aspect is this, Your Lordship, without wasting your time, on the issue that was raised by my learned friend as the second point, which is the video we intend on playing. And we absolutely agree with Your Lordship. Our proposal to my learned friend was this. It would only be appropriate that by the time I come for re-examination, I would have let evidence on that video if my learned friend allows me to play the video, and then as part of his cross-examination, he can cross-examine on that aspect, and then I come after as re-examination. So my proposal is this. This video is played, he's questioned on it, I will re-examine, despite me not being allowed to lead evidence, or rather to take him through it. And then dealing with the second video, then perhaps before he continues with the cross-examination, we deal with our video.
Yes, but Mr. Kasabot, also, Mr. Oppenheimer, what are the consequences of that in relation to the earlier ruling, a position you had taken earlier? Because it must have a bearing on that.
Well, Your Lordship,
Or maybe I should leave the two of you to go and confide and come back to me and say this is what should happen. You know, even in court order, parties can agree to abandon.
yes. Well, Your Lordship, as I understand,
And my client is happy for you to overturn the ruling in relation to this video, if my learned friend is so minded as well. I mean, of course, with the proviso that I'll be allowed to re-examine him on it.
Let me make sure I understand, because this video has got two implications.
Yes.
The first implication of the question that was brought earlier, where you said the formal application needs to be brought
Yes.
for the admission of this evidence from this video into the legal case.
Yes.
And the court made a ruling on that.
Yes.
Now, what I'm saying is, from what now appears to be a common approach, is that it can be presented, cross-examined on it, you will then be examined.
Yes.
My question was, what's the consequence of that to the earlier ruling?
I see.
Because I'm saying it's bound to have an implication. I don't think it's a neutral, it would come out as a neutral outcome.
I agree with Your Lordship. The position is this, Your Lordship. Your ruling insofar as
Admissibility of the evidence is concerned, an application has to be brought. All my client is simply saying is he's happy with the proposal of counsel, overruling me, by the way, saying he's happy for the video to be played, to be questioned on it, I re-examine, and a substantive application nonetheless has to be brought.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fernando, you will proceed with your questions, and can we, I think you were just about to repay already.
Yes, I think just given the long interregnum, it might be worth replaying it.
We've taken debating this, I think the benefit of the witness that we repay.
Yes. Okay, let's get there. Now, Mr. Malema, is it correct that are those people members of your party?
I don't know.
Are they supporters?
I don't know.
Are they wearing EFF regalia?
Yes.
Okay. Are they chanting the words, kill the Boer, the farmer?
Yes.
Do you denounce them doing that? You don't?
said this earlier on. The people are being firstly pushed at the gate there. I don't know what happened, what is the situation there. Then they say, don't push, don't push, don't push it. Then from there they start chanting, kill the boer, kill the farmer. I don't know what happened.
Now, Mr. Malema, what's so interesting about your case is that you've tried to walk this bizarre line. And you say, they've got the wrong man, I don't sing that song, I sing Kiss. And now you say, well, I would sing that song, and those supporters of mine are singing that song.
I said that when I started my Lord, that I will sing it. I just take a decision not to sing it. But it doesn't mean I won't sing it.
Let me ask you a related question. The complainant has sought in its relief to declare the song and the iteration of the song that includes Kiss as hate speech, and to interdict all Mr. Ndlozi and the EFF from singing that song. If the court so orders that you are interdicted from singing that song, will you comply?
Well, I will respect the court, but the court would have declared that our struggle was a hate. Because we sing the songs that were sang by those who came before us. They were not haters, they were liberators. And their songs still have a place today. My Lord, as a younger generation in the struggle, we sing the songs those who came before us sang to put ourselves in the position they were before. And like we said, our songs are not in any way meant to engage in any literal engagement. They are songs for that purpose of the revolution, not to attack anyone. My Lord, from the times of Shaka Zulu until today, I've never heard that black people were given instruction to attack through song. When the Zulu warriors declared, Bulalan Abatagat, they were not singing, they gave a clear command. We don't give a command through singing. When it is time to give a command, we'll give that command. And therefore, singing will never be confused for command. It is what it is. It's a chant, it's a singing, and in African culture, singing is not taken in a literal meaning.
Now, your testimony yesterday, when we played your singing of the song, and I asked you what does shoot to kill mean, you said it is an instruction to kill.
I said to you, the one you're playing for me there, it's a chant. It's a chant, we are chanting. And when we give a command, we don't give a command through a song. Those who are responsible for different battalions and detachment will be given that responsibility to give a command. When O.R. Tambo said in the early 80s, render South Africa ungovernable and unworkable, the youth of South Africa throughout the 80s responded to that. He didn't do that through song. He gave a clear command through the January 8 statement of the ANC, which has always been regarded as umkombandlela, where the president gives command of what's going to happen that year.
I put it to you that people that listen to songs can understand the meaning of those songs and they can receive them as commands.
It's not true. Africans, at least I can speak for Africans, my Lord. Africans don't get command through song. We've always had warriors who led wars of dispossession. We've had our leaders who went underground, who were militarily trained. Never did O.R. or Nelson or Thabo Mbeki or anyone who came after them and before gave an instruction through song. The ANC January 8 statement, my Lord, became popular because that's where command was always given, not the song. I'm still to wait for example where the masses of our people were given an instruction through song to go and attack.
Now, I'd like to give you a couple of cases where the words in that song have been used for attacks. Well, if I can refer the court to page 2612 of the case lines bundle.
You said 2612.
2612. Now, my lord, this is an article from the South African. The title of the article is "Couple Survived Brutal Farm Attack After Pro-EFF Slogans Painted on Their Door." That is an image of the house, and it states there, "Dibulu Ubunu, Viva Juju, Viva EFF." Now, what happened, what the article details after that, 6 weeks later, is that the residents of that house were then brutally attacked. So, Mr. Malema, I put it to you that the slogans in your chant are not just constrained to the space of singing. They have a real effect in the world. People are using those slogans, firstly, to intimidate people, and then secondly, to attack them. And that those words have real consequences.
My Lord, the EFF was formed in 2013. This song was sang way before the formation of the EFF. And to say people are being killed because of an EFF song, as if this is in the founding manifesto of the EFF, it's bizarre.
It's the claim, this is the interesting thing that you do, is you try and create a straw man. So you say, it's not our song. We didn't write this song. Peter Makaba sang this song. But you sing it now.
Yes.
You have embraced the song. It's part of your repertoire.
But you call it
chant
EFF
the
song.
Is it not an EFF song?
It's a struggle song.
Is it a song sung by the EFF?
My Lord, the EFF cannot expropriate this song without compensation. It belongs to the struggle. It's a struggle song.
Is it a song that the EFF sing?
We sing it, yes,
sing
but it's not, to coin it an EFF song, that's being short-sighted. It comes long before that. But secondly, my Lord, these things that are painted here in red, firstly, I don't know who painted them. Secondly, I don't know if this is a pro-EFF supporter. What if it's Roots who painted these things? Because there is competition amongst white farmers. So it can't be entirely correct. What if the perpetrator and the murderer used this to divert attention from the actual suspect so that police are following the wrong lead? You are a lawyer. Please do better than that.
That sounds incredibly conspiratorial. In other words, if we are faced with two options, the one option is that someone who says Viva Malema and Viva Juju, referring to you, and uses words sung by the EFF, intends to intimidate and harm white farmers. And the other one is a conspiratorial view that Ernst Roots himself is painting on these walls in order to try and set you up. I would say that is an entirely improbable view.
You are using wrong words as a lawyer. You must be clever than that. I'm saying not to set me up. I'm saying to divert the possible direction of investigation. So you kill my Lord, and then you drop an EFF T-shirt so that the natural suspect should be the EFF, while the real perpetrator is free because he diverted you. We don't know if the court in this case where people were killed arrived at a conclusion that indeed these were EFF people. We don't know that these people were caught and they are EFF members. We are shown an article here with a picture which we don't know where it was taken. We don't know if it's real. So it can't be correct that because it's written EFF, automatically it means EFF. The enemies of the EFF can also do that. I told you of agent provocateurs, which existed even during the time of the struggle.
I'll ask you a couple of simple questions then. Would you, let's be agnostic as to whether an EFF person wrote that on that wall. Would you denounce that? Would you say that an EFF person ought not to write that on people's walls?
Any EFF person who kills anyone is a murderer and therefore must be condemned and be dealt with through the laws of South Africa. So whether he wrote EFF and killed a farmer or a black person, he's a murderer. And his actions will not be inspired by the revolution, but by criminality.
Now, I'm glad to hear you say that you denounce the murdering, but I asked you a different question. My question was, if an EFF member were to write that on someone's walls, which are Dibulu Ubunu, Viva Malema, Viva Juju, would you denounce the act of writing it on the walls from an EFF member?
I denounce everyone who kill people, and that includes EFF members.
I'm asking about the act of writing. In other
Which
words,
one?
Spraying that graffiti on someone's property, do you denounce that action? I'm not asking about the killing.
Denouncing graffiti what?
Yes, would you denounce a member of the EFF putting graffiti on someone's house that says Dibulu Ubunu, Viva Juju, Viva Malema?
No, I won't.
You wouldn't denounce it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Graffiti is part of the struggle. We used it a lot.
I'm not sure whether the comments follow the question. Mr. Malema, the question is, you asked about condemning the murder.
Yes.
The second part of the question is, if that same person who had murdered go out and do graffiti or write on the wall, the EFF, what would be your attitude?
The person who committed murder goes out to write that. No, we won't be associated with that. We'll condemn that. Because we are no party of murderers. And we don't want supporters who are murderers.
And the second part of your answer was that you would not condemn the person who uses graffiti. Is that correct?
Yes, not the one who committed murder, my lord, so that we are at one.
Yeah.
If a person uses graffiti, we used graffiti throughout the struggle.
When Mr. Oppenheimer made my intervention cause confusion, I think you need to make it clear. Are you saying the use of graffiti in general?
This graffiti.
The use of graffiti in this specific case where the murderer, after killing or before killing, he uses graffiti?
No. Yeah, to be fair to the witness, in other words, I understand his testimony to be as follows, which is that he condemns any member of the EFF who were to perform a killing. They would condemn that. I'm not asking about this person, in other words, if the person, because in other words, there's a debate as to who put the graffiti there. I'm asking about the mere act of the graffiti, untied from the killing, and from what I understand, the evidence is that. Yes.
Well, then I think, Mr. Malema, the question I explained it to you as though it's the same person who was killed and then used graffiti to misdirect the investigation, as we say. The question now is, do you condemn EFF members that goes around writing EFF on the walls or on other properties?
No, we don't condemn that. Graffiti is part of the struggle, my lord. There's always been.
I'd like
We
to.
grew up everywhere. We found Release Mandela painted everywhere, on the walls, on the pavements, on bridges. In 1994 and beyond, now is the time, vote ANC, Azapo, all of us, we used graffiti and we still do.
Is there a difference between saying release Mandela and writing in graffiti Dibulu Ubunu, translated to kill the Boer? Is there a difference?
There's no difference, Shem. It's the same. We actually sang both. We sang Release Mandela, followed by Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. Togetherness. Same WhatsApp group.
I'd like to refer you to another case. It's at page 54 of the book. I'll read it out to you. And it is referenced to a particular newspaper article. Just to be fair, so that we can refer to the correct article. The footnote reference is on page 356. It is footnote 11. It's from South Africa Today, 14th of June 2016. The article is entitled, "Shocking Hate Crimes, Farm Murders in South Africa." The book says, on 6th of March 2009, Alice Lotta at the age of 76 and her daughter Helen at the age of 57 were tortured to death on their farm in Allenbridge near Welkom in the Free State. Their home was several hundred meters from the Allenbridge police station. Both women were tortured for hours, being stabbed with broken glass bottles in their vaginas. One of the women also had her breast cut off while she was still alive. Helen's injuries were so extreme that the medical examiner was unable to tell if she had also been raped. Alice had been stabbed in the neck and throat and had drowned in her own blood. Their blood was used to write the words, "Kill the Boer," on the walls of their homestead. What's your reaction to that?
It's a criminality. It's a criminality, my lord. People commit criminality and write whatever they want to write. There is another case of a white farmer who killed a 13-year-old. As we speak now,
about this case.
I'm telling you now, I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question. Where a young man's private parts and all of that were cut and buried by a white farmer. Why are you not citing it there? What was written after that?
Let's think about your case. You're giving a case of a white farmer who cuts off the private parts of a, you say, of a black person.
Yeah, a black young 13-year-old.
Would you call that a crime? Would you call that a hate crime?
It's murder.
It's just murder.
It's murder
Is it
of
just
a
murder?
black 13-year-old who is allegedly, my lord, was stealing mangoes.
Would you call it a racist murder?
It's driven by racist motive.
It is.
Yes.
Now, would you accept the same?
Because
in
the
this
farmer
case?
is in a position of power.
Okay.
He unleashes power against the vulnerable.
And the torturers who tortured this mother and daughter to death and then wrote the words, "Kill the Boer in blood," were they in a position of power over those two women?
My lord, we don't know if they are farmers. We don't know their social standing. We don't know their relationship to the means of production. And at the face value, if you present it like that without those facts to me, it's murder.
Now that just shows me how sick and twisted your ideological position is. You've said in order to work out whether there's a power relationship, you need to know if those women are working class. That is outrageous. It's so obvious to every person in this court that a person who tortures another person to death exercises power over them, and you will not acknowledge that. Can you not see the problem with that?
No, your definition of power is so naive and shallow. I talk power in terms of the relationship to the means of production.
Yes.
And I'm saying to you, my lord, any person in that position of the ownership of the means of production cannot go and do the things you are saying they've done. I don't know those people. You have not told me who they are. You have not told me, and all I know is that it's people who killed the people in the farm and road killed the farmer. I don't know their social standing. But the example I gave you, I know the social standing of the two parties involved. And the only thing that can motivate the farmer to do what he did, it's a hatred.
Now, this is what's astounding to me, as I say. You say the missing information, in order to come to a judgment about whether power is exercised, you need to know those people's class status, their relation to the means of production. That, again, shows me why your underlying ideological position, your embrace of communism, brings you to these absolutely untenable positions where you have to say, I'm going to reserve judgment as to whether this is a hate crime because I don't know their class position. But in the case where a farmer represents, you say, someone of a high class status, well, then I don't need to reserve judgment. I can apply my mind because I can use the Marxist rhetoric, and that's sufficient to answer the question. And my point to you is that when you use this group analysis, you miss out on individual suffering. You discard an individual human rights framework, and you don't judge people based on the content of their individual actions. You say, I need to reserve judgment until I know what their class status is. And I put to you that that is morally untenable.
No, once you don't put their class positioning to me, you can't blame it to me. I've put their class positioning to you. In my case, I said a farmer, a white farmer, killed a 13-year-old black boy. Both in terms of power relations, you can distinguish who's more powerful than the other. And what could be the reason? The only conclusion I arrived at is that this is an act of hatred. So in your case, you don't tell me the class positioning of these people. You don't tell me who they are. All you tell me is that they cut a breast of a woman and then they wrote on the wall that killed the farmer. How am I supposed to arrive at a class conclusion without the facts being presented before me?
Now that's amazing to me as well, because I would think that any normal human being would be very quick to say, this strikes me as an act of racial hatred. This individual exercised power over the other individual because they tortured them to death. But you say, I can't answer because I don't have the full Marxist analysis. And that just shows me what your position is, and I thank you for telling us your position.
You see, what happens is, those guys have committed crime, right? And they are going to be arrested and sent to jail for a very long time in terms of the laws of South Africa. What necessitated that crime, I'm unable to arrive at that conclusion because I don't have facts before me, including the class positioning. The one that acted on a black young boy, despite that he was necessitated by hatred, he too committed crime of murder and shall be dealt with as such.
You had stated earlier that we should look at speeches when you want to try and get a sense.
We should?
Look at speeches
Yeah.
to get a sense of what people's positions are. Now, you have a speech that's we've played extracts from it in this court. You're well aware of it. On page 203 of the book, this is an extract from your speech in Newcastle on the 7th of November, where you stated this phrase: "We are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now." Now that qualifier, "at least for now," can you please explain it to us?
I can't guarantee the future. I said that earlier. I'm not a prophet. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I've gone to town, my Lord. You said we don't have time. I've gone to town to explain why I said the things I said. I said, if things don't change, there will be an unled revolution in South Africa. And that revolution will affect all of us, including myself. And we, the black people who have committed a class suicide and are now staying in the suburbs, are going to be actually the biggest victims, because those who are going to go on an unled revolution are going to attack us and classify us as sellouts who have abandoned them in squalor, in poverty, in the townships. And for as long as there is no clear program to change the patterns of property ownership, we can all be guaranteed we are all going to be in serious trouble.
Now, the way the sentence is structured, you say, we are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. That means at some future date, we may call for the slaughter of white people. Is that correct?
Let's deal with that at that future date. I don't know what's going to happen.
So you're saying you are not ruling out that in the future you may very well call for the slaughter of white people.
It may not be me.
Could it be you?
It could be me, yes, but it may not be me.
Yes, so it could be you. You could, at some future date, call for the slaughter of white people.
What will necessitate that?
You tell me.
I don't know. Why would I do that?
You've said you could do it in the future, is that correct?
I can't guarantee that I can't do it or I won't do it.
So right now,
So I'm
if I
not
asked
ruling
you to
out that
pledge-
possibility.
If I asked you to pledge, to say, I will never call for the slaughter of white people, would you make that pledge?
I will do it with ease.
Make that pledge.
Why would I do that?
I'm asking you to make that
I
pledge.
don't.
You
I
said,
won't,
I will do it.
I
with
won't
ease."
do it.
Make the pledge.
I won't do it.
You won't do it?
Yes.
I understand. Now, yes? It's page 203. I'd like to read to you more from that speech, and then I'd like to read to you a response from James Myburgh at Politics Web. Here's the extract, and this is at page 12 of the complainant's bundle. You say, I'm here to disturb the white man's peace. They are right. The white man has been too comfortable for too long. We are here unashamedly to disturb the white man's peace because we have never known peace. We don't know what peace looks like. They have been living peacefully. They have been swimming in a pool of privilege. They have been enjoying themselves because they always owned our land. We, the rightful owners, our peace was disturbed by white man's arrival here. They committed a black genocide. They killed our people during land possession. Today we are told, don't disturb them, even when they disturbed our peace. They found peaceful Africans here, they killed them. They slaughtered them like animals. We are not calling for the slaughtering of white people, at least for now. We will not chase white people into the sea, we will give them a portion. That is where you stay. You can't own bigger than us. You are a visitor. Visitors must behave. They must know the land belongs to the people of South Africa, the indigenous people of South Africa. For as long as the land is not in the hands of black people, we remain a conquered nation. We are conquered. We are defeated. 1994 means nothing without the land. Victory will only be victory if the land is restored in the hands of rightful owners, and rightful owners unashamedly as black people. No white person is a rightful owner of the land here in South Africa and in the whole of the African continent. This is our continent. It belongs to us. Now I'm going to read to you James Myburgh, who is the editor of Politics Web's discussion on that. And he makes a comparison between what you've said and what the Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels said. He says, the propaganda of Goebbels and others aggressively accused the Jews. It's on page 13, just follows on. The propaganda of Goebbels and others aggressively accused the Jews of having done what the National Socialists proceeded to do to them. Thus, the expulsion of the Jews from state employment and the professions was justified by propaganda, claiming the Jews had unfairly seized the best jobs for themselves. The dispossession of the Jews by propaganda that they had stolen their wealth from honest Germans. The murder of the Jews by propaganda that they were murderers of Germans. The war on the Jews by the claim that the Jews had declared a war on Germany, and so on. The language used by Malema, white people, they, them, combines all white individuals, the young and the old, the long dead and the yet to be born, into a single group. Highly negative attributes, murder, criminality, genocide, viewing black people as animals, are then ascribed to each member of this entity. This is done by taking crimes committed or allegedly committed by members of this group recently or hundreds of years ago, and then attributing guilt to the group as a whole. The suggestion is then made that white people deserve to be punished, but because of the great powers of patience and forgiveness of black people, they have not yet been. However, if they continue with their crimes and racism against black people and refuse to return that which they steal, which they stole, all bets are off the table. Now, Mr. Malema, I'm giving you your speech and I'm showing you the gloss. I'm pointing out the tactic that you've used. And at the heart of this tactic, something deeply sinister and deeply antithetical to the value of non-racialism, a value which is built into our Constitution, In Section 1 of our Constitution, it says South Africa is a nation founded on the value of non-racialism. The idea that we judge people on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And what you do is you try and attribute guilt through groups. So instead of judging someone as an individual, what you do is you allocate blame to a group merely because they share the same melanin count, the same skin tone as other people, that they happen to look like other people. So you want to hold modern white South Africans liable for crimes committed by people hundreds of years ago who happen to look like them. And that's the sickness. That's the danger that you're doing, is that you are trying to describe a whole group of people as criminals, murderers, land thieves, without any evidence that any of those individuals have committed those crimes. And that is antithetical to building a nation founded on the values of reconciliation and of healing. It's divisive and it's racist.
He gave me a long speech. I don't know what is the question, my lord. He's addressing a political rally of some sort.
Mr. Malema, is
What's
it
your
the case?
question?
I'll ask you a very simple question. Is it the case that you hold white people as a group liable for the sins of their fathers?
Yes. Yes, correct.
Now, I'm putting it to you that that is racist. That if individual black people were held accountable for the sins of other people who happen to share their melanin counts, there are black people that you will accept have committed the crimes of murder, rape, theft. It would be improper to make a claim that all black people are murderers, thieves, and rapists. That would be racist to do so. Do you accept that?
My brother, when the white people came here and took our land, they didn't come and take our land as an individual. They took it as settlers and then pushed us to a land that is not even productive and made us to stay like sardines in congested environments with no economic opportunities. It is white people who must be ashamed of what they've done to us. You cannot turn tables now and want to blame me for the crimes committed by white people. It is a white regime that killed children in 1976. It is the white regime that killed children in the 80s and in the early 90s. It is white people who engaged in the wars of dispossession and forcefully took our land and our cows. Why can't you take responsibility? Why can't you for once just say sorry for the crimes we've committed against you? Why do you want to become victims when we are the biggest victims here? When we have lost everything? When we as black people remain a traumatized nation? A nation that doesn't know what the future holds for them. At least you are guaranteed the future. At least you know if it doesn't work for you here, you can go somewhere else. We've got nowhere to go. And then you come here and want to accuse me, a victim of racism, of being a racist. It's a huge insult, not only to me, but to black people. Madiba coerced us into reconciling with people who have never been one with. That was a myth. It is unrealistic. You can't reconcile if you have never been together. You never came here with an intention to be with us. You came here with an intention to conquer us.
See,
and we remain conquered.
You using this term you, and this is detached from reality. You want to say that you, me, white people, are the same as people from 1652, from 350 years ago.
You are the same.
You want to say it's the same.
You are the same. You are the same.
There's something, The claim is a very simple one, that the way that we deal with things in a just system is we don't ask someone, are you a member of a particular race? Has that race committed crimes? Yes, that race has committed crimes, therefore you are liable for those crimes. The way that we deal with things in court is we say, did you, as an individual, commit that crime? Are you a murderer? If you are a murderer because of what you did as an individual, we hold you liable. We don't say...
My apologies, Your Lordship. He can't structure how the witness should answer the question. If the question is a question of an individual murder in a criminal trial, there's merit to the proposition. But if he's dealing with a systematic issue, then you can't direct him as to how he should answer on an individual basis. He's dealing with a systematic issue and he should be permitted to do so.
My Lord, the question is very simple. It's to point out that his systematic analysis is fundamentally flawed, and it is premised on the idea of holding individuals liable for the crimes committed by their racial group. And I'm giving an example where I say that's not how we run things in a just country. We hold individuals liable for their crimes. And the danger of what you do is that you attribute crimes committed by others merely because they have the same skin tone to individuals. And I'm saying this is the simple question. If someone were to say, here is evidence of black people having committed crimes of murder, rape, genocide, and then said, I want to hold this particular black individual liable for those crimes, even though they never did it themselves, you would describe that as racist. Yes. Yes. Yes, well, my Lord, in other words, an individual could be held liable. In other words, an individual could perform the act of genocide by killing thousands, tens of thousands of people. Yes. I'll narrow the question. Yes. I'm happy to do some of it. The question is very simple. If it is the case that there are some black people who have committed crimes of murder, rape, and theft, that it would be racist to attribute those crimes to a different black individual. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Right. Now,
My Lord, he asked me a question before I got interrupted about the similar issue that individuals commit crime and then should we say black? And I said no. But there is now a problem, my Lord, in our society where the women are being killed in their numbers. And they've come up with a hashtag called men are trash. Me and you sitting here, my Lord, we've never raped any woman, we've never killed any woman, but we appreciate the frustration they find themselves in. And because we are not trash and we are not murderers and we are not rapists, when they say men are trash, we are so unaffected individually because we know we don't subscribe to that. I call whites racist in the presence of my legal team and all those whites I work with. They are unaffected because they know they are not racist. They know I'm not talking to them. So it was a systematic arrangement of white people who came up with a segregation policy to isolate us. It was not an individual, my Lord. It was the colonialists, the settlers who came and took our land collectively, took our minerals collectively. We cannot blame that on an individual. Only a narrow-minded person will say, because a black person individually commit murder, not through a systematic black system that says we must go and kill people, then we must generalize these black people. But the generalization of white people is based on the system that they themselves developed. By the way, you are the ones who came with this thing of classifying people with race. We never woken up in the morning and declared we are black. You declared us black so that you can isolate yourself from us. You've got the blame to take and take responsibility. White people, till to date, and your leaders, many of them refuse to go to the TRC just to take a stand and apologize.
now here's the difficulty that I have.
So if you're not a racist, don't be offended.
So here's the difficulty I have with your position. You want to make a broad claim, white people are racists, except for, of course, all the white people who aren't racists. White people are land thieves, except for all of the people who haven't stolen any land. Is that what you're saying?
White people stole our land.
Which white people?
White people who came and settled here.
350 years ago.
Yes.
Do you think white people now are land thieves?
Yes. They remain land thieves.
They remain land thieves.
Yes.
Now, you
The
can
land
see-
has not been returned into the hands of the rightful owners. For as long as you are in a possession of a stolen car, you remain a criminal.
Let's use that analogy of a car. Now, a simple situation. An individual steals my car. They have a claim against me for the return of that car, and I should be punished for the stealing of that car. Imagine that it's the father of the individual who stole the car, and I now pursue the son. You might say, well, there's a very close link here. You've got the car, it's in your possession, we should return the car. But your case isn't like that. Your case is to go back 350 years ago and to say someone who looks like your grandfather, great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, stole land from someone who looks like my great-great-great-great-grandfather. And therefore you today must pay it back. Now, I put it to you that that is not our ordinary sense of justice.
But who pays
Just
reparation?
hold on. Your Lordship, if we're going to infuse legal argument as a proposition to the client, then I think it's only fair that there'd be a balance. So my learned friend must take the argument further. If he says if the father steals the car and gives it to his son, technically speaking, the father is a criminal. But as a matter of fact, the son himself is a criminal for possession of stolen property. So if he's going to make a legal argument, he must take it to its natural conclusion, because it has an implication on what my client is suggesting, that if you remain in possession of stolen land, albeit that you didn't steal it, you remain a criminal, albeit perhaps in a different form. And that's the proposition he's making.
My learned friend appears to be testifying on behalf of the witness as to what his response would be. I'm just pointing out to you, very simply, that what you're trying to do is attribute guilt across lines over 350 years, regardless of whether a particular piece of land was once dispossessed. Your claim is white people cannot be the rightful owners of land in this country, regardless of whether they bought the land, whether they're Americans who landed here yesterday. If they're white, they are not rightful owners of the land. And your claim is that the rightful owners of the land must be black people, regardless of whether they have any particular rights to that land. We have a restitution process in place in South Africa. And Mr. Roots has given some evidence on how that restitution process works. It's very simple. The Constitution says, after 1913, if you can show that you were dispossessed, then you must either receive the land back or you must receive restitution. In other words, in the form of financial compensation. And that process has been undergone. You are calling for something much more radical. In other words, instead of looking at the individual car, you can say you're...
Yeah, I'm also lost.
Yes. Simple question to you is, how do you justify holding someone today liable for crimes committed by someone else 350 years ago?
There is a saying ya hore bana ba tla otlwa ka bokgopo ba batswadi ba bona. I don't know how to say it in English. There will be an interpreter here. You cannot take a stolen car from your father and claim you are not a criminal. It remains a stolen car. Yes. So when you steal a car and you pass over the car to the stolen car to your children, it makes that child a criminal as well, because it's in possession of stolen goods. And that child passes that car, or doesn't even pass that car. He sells that car to go and buy another car with the money of stolen goods. It remains a stolen good, the property you bought. With the money stolen, got from a stolen goods. You are in possession of stolen property. Return it, please. Your parents have left you a very bad name. And don't blame it on us. But I asked a question earlier. Reparations are paid.
I'd like to stop you right there. Why I have the name that I have is that my grandparents fled Nazi Germany and sought refuge in South Africa in the 30s to avoid extermination. Now, the witness has brought up my name, and I will use the opportunity to respond to it.
I never brought your name.
You did.
I
You
never
said
brought
my
your
name.
name. I've never brought your
Lordship,
name.
perhaps I have a solution to this. The witness testified at least 3 times yesterday that when he says you, I'm talking about your client, 3 times. The second point is we're getting into a debate, and perhaps it's an opportune time for us to take the tea break as well.
Yes, my lord, let's take the tea adjournment.
I want to ask to complete on this one. Are you completed on this question? Because I wouldn't want to take further stab at the tea.
Yes, well then let's finish the question. When you said your name, are you referring to my surname of Oppenheimer?
You see, if he's going to be personal with me like that, I'm going to take a big issue. I've never brought Oppenheimer's name. I don't even know his name. I don't know. I've never, my lord, called him by name. I've always referred to him as you, and I clarified it that I'm referring to a client.
When you said your name, what are you referring to?
What do you mean?
You testified now, your name. Now, what are you referring to?
Your name, Oppenheimer.
No, I'm asking you. I'm giving you an opportunity to explain what it is you mean. You said your name. Explain what you mean.
Perhaps. If I can assist your lordship,
Yes.
The witness clearly struggling with the reference to your name. So the witness's testimony earlier was, your fathers, your parents have left you a bad name.
Yes.
And now witness perhaps now has
Okay.
context of what is meant, and then perhaps can respond.
Yes, my lord. When I say your name, I mean them as white people. Your parents have left you a bad name. So that is the context I'm using it. So please, if you are going to be a legal representative, you are going to have to reduce yourself from this case as an individual. Remove your emotions and deal with me as a professional. Because if you are going to come to me as a personal person, individually, I will no longer look at you as a professional. I will decisively deal with you as an individual.
Let's pause for a moment. I think we're going to take a tea break. But I think one of the difficulties and the challenge in the question Mr. Oppenheimer is confusion that comes about the systematic issues and the individual issues. I think try and make sure that you stick to one of them at a particular time, because they keep coming backwards and forward. At one stage, it was a systematic problem about dispossession, and then it then came to examples about stealing of motor vehicles by individuals. And I think that's where the whole confusion comes up, and then we just end up in this whole debate. So try and make sure that you draw that distinction on your questions.
My point is that why this line of questioning is to show that what's being done is to hold individuals liable for the sins of their fathers, as the witnesses testified. And I appreciate the clarity. In other words, when he says your name, he means the bad name of white people, and he's not referring to my surname. And I take that evidence as it is stated.
But my lord, I was interrupted here on a point of reparations. We have seen countries paying reparations, generations way after those crimes were committed to those nations. The current generation taking responsibility for the sins committed by generations centuries ago. And that argument has never arisen. That no, why are you blaming us? Why are we the ones who are paying for the sins of our parents? So this matter that why are we paying for the sins of our parents or grandparents as the current generation is neither here nor there. You have inherited the debt and you shall pay the debt.
I understand your position. Let's take this here, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Let me drink my water.
Just be careful of the mics then.
described it as a Marxist-Leninist for non-Islamist organization. Is that correct? I've got a copy of Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. I'd like just to read you an extract from it and get your comment. In its bare reality, decolonization reeks of red-hot cannonballs and bloody knives. For the last can be the first only after a murderous and decisive confrontation between the two protagonists. This determination to have the last move up to the front, to have to then clamber up, too quickly some say, the famous echelons of an organized society, can only succeed by resorting to every means, including, of course, of violence. You do not disorganize a society, however primitive it may be, with such an agenda, if you are not determined from the very start to smash every obstacle encountered. The colonized who have made up their minds to make such an agenda into a driving force have been prepared for violence from time immemorial. As they are born into it, it is obvious to them that their cramped world, riddled with taboos, can only be challenged by out-and-out violence. It's, my lord, it's from the book, The Wretched of the Earth. I will provide a copy of that extract to your lordship. We can upload it onto case lines. Yes, we could. We could arrange one. Now, if I understand the thrust of what Fanon is saying, it's that a decolonization process requires violence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, would you embrace violence as a process to decolonize in South Africa?
Colonialism is violent. It's like racism. And the only way to deal with violence, you must be violent. Therefore, there is nothing wrong in engaging in a revolution and want to be suggesting that you can't be engaged in violence. Revolution itself is violence.
And you described yourselves as a revolutionary militant party, is that correct?
Very radical and militant.
Radical and militant.
Yes.
And so, and you would be happy to then endorse the use of violence for your revolutionary aims?
My Lord, when the time comes and the conditions on the ground necessitate that arms must be taken, we'll do so without hesitation. Our forefathers did that and will not hesitate to repeat because we have not achieved that which they fought for. But we are prepared, like we are doing now, engaging in a peaceful means.
See, now, this is the interesting thing about your party. It seems that the only way in which it can survive is to pretend that you are still involved in a struggle against apartheid, even though it's 28 years later after South Africa's first democratic elections. I put it to you that the policies that your party espouse, those communist policies, have been so denounced by facts, the failed communist states all around the world, that the only way that you can get any support is to pretend that you're involved in the struggle against apartheid, even though apartheid has been over for 28 years.
To say apartheid ended 28 years ago, it's a sign of being insensitive and racist, because apartheid did not end in 1994. We ushered in political freedom in 1994, and the economic apartheid remains intact. My Lord, I don't want to use your court to engage in ideological gymnastics with a person who has got no clarity, none whatsoever, what we stand for. You can vulgarize and insult Marxism the way you want, but it remains a guiding school of thought for the EFF.
Yes, my point to you is that your party, from what I understand, has received about 10% of the vote. At the way it stands no possibility of ever being elected into government. Do you currently run any municipalities, for example?
I'm going to be president of this country, whether you like it or not. Yes. And I will preside over the affairs of this country, including presiding over you. I think you must start adjusting to that reality. The sooner you do that, the less chest pains you'll have when that reality comes.
What chest pains would result?
Racist chest pains.
I put it to you, Mr. Malema, that, again, for a party that is at 10%, there just doesn't appear to be any possibility of you being president of this country.
Your party that you represent has got any percentage you can talk about, because it will never even try. Our people will reject a racist party like the one you represent. But just to help you, the EFF's existence in this country has put the ANC below 50% in the last local government elections and has taken away, through coalition governments, metros in South Africa, in Joburg, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, Nelson Mandela, including in eThekwini, something that nobody thought will happen even before the ANC turns 30 years. You may think 10% is insignificant, but it's a very huge percentage, and we are the only party that is growing in South Africa amongst the three parties. We have never declined in any election.
Well, my lord, my point is that the rhetoric that Mr. Malema uses is political rhetoric of a very dangerous nature, but that it is to create a struggle, say we're engaged in the struggle. But in some senses, it's rhetoric that seems to only have a certain amount of appetite among the populace, that your support appears to be capped at 10%. But, as you point out, Mr. Malema,
Yes, you have dealt with the rhetoric, but the question of whether this party is going to win the election or it's not going to win the election, I'm not sure how relevant that is, and it seems like it's going to detain us for some time.
yes.
And I think it's going to be just a pure political statement. Mr. Malema is going to say, we're winning the election, the next election around, and we're going to go into circles.
Yes, and then I won't push the point.
Okay, thank you.
You testified earlier that when Chris Hani was killed, that, and you can clarify if I'm saying this incorrectly, that you wanted to kill them after they killed Chris Hani. Who does that refer to?
We were very angry. We were ready to kill.
Kill
We were waiting for the leadership to just give an instruction. And all corners of South Africa were going to engage in a revolution. And perhaps if that could have happened, we wouldn't be sitting here and entertaining racists. Perhaps if we had taken this government through revolutionary means and not negotiated settlement, we wouldn't be undermined by small-minded racists who are dragging us to courts here day in, day out about revolutionary songs, but say we must sing this stem on our national anthem, a song that they were singing when they were torturing our people, a song that they used to sing to celebrate the oppression of our people. They see nothing wrong with it because of this negotiated settlement. Perhaps that should have happened. Maybe you would have respected us. You have no respect for us. We still have you here. You still have our land. We have a constitution that we are embracing, all of us, but more celebrated by you. Because a revolution took place, my lord, where the oppressor lost nothing. Where have you ever seen a revolution taking place where the oppressor loses nothing? And then the oppressor celebrates the triumph of the revolution. Perhaps Chris Hani's death should have served as that turning point. Would not be undermined here.
Let's get some clarity on this. So that violent revolution, who would have been the targets of it?
It would have been the white oppression, the white system that took our land, the white system that denied us economic opportunities in this country.
The white system or the white people? You said kill them. I'm asking if you intended on saying...
But I gave you an answer. You either take it or you leave it.
Well, I'm asking
I said, who's the target? I said, the white system of segregation and oppression would have been a target.
Now, hold on a second here. This is what I find alarming to me. You want to say, we should have had the violent revolution. We wouldn't find ourselves in court today being dragged here to answer about hate speech. If we'd removed this system, but that system of segregation is being dismantled, is that not correct?
It's not. It's not. I told you, I asked you a question, my Lord said I shouldn't ask you questions. And there he intervened properly and decisively because you are not going to answer it. I asked you, who owns the Johannesburg Stock Exchange? Do you know, my Lord, that 2% of Johannesburg Stock Exchange, 2% is owned by 100% owned black business? 2. There's nothing beyond 2% in the Johannesburg. What do you call that? That's an economic operation. When you talk the land, and we're talking here agricultural land, the study that was conducted on agricultural land is 7.5%. I'm answering your question of oppression.
The question was about, you said, when Chris Hani was killed, we wanted to kill them, right? And you said, maybe it would have been better if we'd done that.
Yes.
And I'm asking you who them was.
The system, the white system of apartheid should have been attacked and collapsed and brought to its knees, violently so. Perhaps if we had done a proper revolution. Because, you know, my Lord, we're sitting here with pain, with trauma, and to be interrogated by people like this, who perpetuate the segregation, who continue to promote racism in this country, it's really unfair.
You know what's unfair? The complainant has led witnesses who survived farm attacks, who expressed real trauma, who themselves, the one witness was shot and his wife was murdered in front of him. The other one discovered her husband after being shot in the head. That's real trauma. The testimony from them was that when they hear chants like kill the Boer, kill the farmer, that brings back those memories of real trauma, real vivid trauma, recent trauma. And you have taken the position that that trauma doesn't matter, that only your pain matters. That strikes me as a failure of humanity.
My Lord, a real trauma of two people is called a real trauma. A trauma of my parents who have had to pick up the dead bodies in Soweto, of their children who went to school and came back dead, that is not called a real trauma. The 80s, our children killed in the 90s, that is not called a real trauma. A real trauma is white. It has got color. Of two families, I'm talking here, thousands of children have died. Thousands of children have seen their mothers being tortured. I was young when police walked into my mother's house and she was sleeping. They took off her blankets off. Men, she was not dressed up. She was sleeping. Men took off her blankets. I live with that for the rest of my life, that some strange men came into my house and took off the blankets of my mother to search if she's not a terrorist. That is not real trauma because it's not white. A black child's trauma is not a trauma. We are still a traumatized nation, if you don't know. And that trauma is real. And don't push us to that pain. Because when that day comes, we'll not be scared. We've lost everything. We survive by the day. We don't know what tomorrow holds for us.
Just elaborate on that.
I've elaborated.
When you say you'll not be scared, what do you intend on doing?
I'm not scared of death. I'm not scared of death. I don't know why I'm still alive.
Are you scared of
I
killing?
died long time ago.
Are you scared of killing?
I'm not scared of killing. A revolutionary is a walking killing machine. Not scared of death. If that need arise, I will kill. And I will do so with no hesitation, especially in defense of my people.
I'd like to refer you to Peter Macaber's singing of Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. It's at page 194 of the book. You stated earlier that Macaber was, how do you put it, a mentor, is that correct? Was a mentor of yours.
Peter is my brother, is my mentor.
Yes.
I respect him highly, and I think that enough is not being done to honor him. And that is a topic for another day. A lot of comrades who come from where I come from have not been honored. They are looked down at, and a temptation exists that their names must be erased from the books of history. And Peter belongs to that history. He has not been honored properly. I think he deserves more. We should replace Paul Kruger's statue in Pretoria with Peter Mukaba's statue.
So I'd like to read to you this extract from the book. It's at page 194 of the book. It says, Mokaba was particularly known for popularizing the song, Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. On 17th of April 1993, Mokaba addressed a mass rally in Khayelitsha just outside Cape Town in the Western Cape. We led the crowd in chanting, Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. The slogan, Bulula Mabunu, Kill the Boers, was used. The song had been a popular song of the ANC in its military room in Konto Masizwe in its armed struggle against the white minority government. Despite severe criticism, Mokaba persisted, even going further to a rally at Shoshonguvwe Technikon near Pretoria, Gauteng, on 21 April the same year. He said, in quotes, "Let me make it clear. What I said was, kill the farmer, kill the Boer, shoot to kill. This is our culture, this is our tradition. Those who disagree can go to hell." Would you endorse those clauses?
I don't know what you are reading. I don't know that speech, my lord. I don't know what you are reading.
Well, then I can ask you just, we can refer you to the, if you can have a copy of the book in front of you, then you can read it.
Which one?
It comes from this book.
I don't want to touch that book. It has got blood. I don't want to touch that book. It has got blood of black people. I don't want Ruth's book next to me. Give me Wretched of the Earth, if you want.
Yes. Well, this extract is not from Wretched of the Earth.
It comes from where?
But the question is simple then.
Sorry, Your Lordship. Again, in fairness to the witness, one, the witness has confirmed that he's not familiar with the speech. What that would mean is he does not understand the context surrounding the speech. Then perhaps in fairness to the witness, I would invite my learned friend to continue reading the text and give the full picture for the client to respond. In fact, let me take on that task myself. It goes further, it says, Mokaba then urged the students to prepare for war. He later rephrased, saying that he did not mean for these comments to be taken literally. So that full context must be given to the witness before he responds.
Yes, that's fair. In other words, was Mokaba calling for a metaphorical war?
I don't know. I was not there, sir.
Yes.
He explains it himself, Mokaba, there. But my lord, when we go for Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates at Orlando Stadium or FNB, I support Orlando Pirates. I will say, like all the supporters, today we are going for a kill. In a derby, we are going for a kill. If you meet people like this, you talk like that, then they're going to make noise and say, Kaizer Chiefs people are going to be killed today. I met Pirates people saying they are going for a kill. Mokaba is self-explaining that. He says, I'm not meaning this in a literal sense. We have actually discovered a video of Peter where he explains this, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, and I hope our legal team will play it, so that Peter can speak for himself from the grave on what he meant by this song.
Yes, well, we will see that video. I'm putting to you a version that he gave contemporaneously at the time, and the version there, and you can say whether you denounce that version or not. I suppose that would be fair.
I will never denounce Peter Mokaba.
Yes.
Not in his grave. It will be an African to denounce the dead.
Would you denounce the content of the thoughts, not him?
Come again?
Would you denounce the content of what he said, but not him?
I don't know if that is the real thing. You know, I told you, my brother, I've got a problem with Ruth's book.
Yes.
Because Ruth is not a known scholar. He's a known racist. It's not known for books.
Mr. Malema, it's an amazing approach that you have towards scholarship. This book has 1,000 notes in it. compiled has 1,000 footnotes in it. In other words, the allegations that are made in the book are backed up with 1,000 external sources. And your approach is, so I'm not even going to look at the book because I am going to deem Mr. Roots a racist. That's not a scholarly approach.
I see what Mr. Roots did. Mr. Roots is using innocent white people who are genuinely scared because of the levels of crime in this country to scare them through selling that book, that this is what is happening, kill the boy, you're going to die, buy the book and read it, this is how it's going to happen. That's how they survived. That's how they make money.
There's a very simple alternative
you are here
explanation
to
for that.
promote Roots' book at my Lord's expense. The courts are too busy. They should be dealing with serious matters, not this type of books where people are perpetuating hatred. How do you sit and choose such a book? Roots is not a known scholar, man.
Now, this is what's astounding.
He has got no claim on any intellectual contribution in this country or any contribution to a geography of knowledge. He himself knows that.
What's astounding is that the book contains, in enormous detail, graphs about the frequency of farm murders, detailed accounts about how people have been tortured to death on farms. I've read some of that evidence to you. Some of it has been led earlier in this court. And your claim is that it's wasting the court's time. Now, that strikes me so sinister, that exposing hatred, exposing murders, revealing the evidence of these tortures, of these killings, you want to describe that as a waste of court resources.
He's pushing a racist narrative, my brother. He's creating a non-existing reality in that book of his.
See,
and I'm not interested in
this is the
his book.
gaslighting. This is the gaslighting that you do to the public. So your behavior is such that you accuse groups of people based on their race of crimes. You say, I'm not being a racist. You then accuse someone who is exposing farm murders and torture of being a racist. That is your move, to accuse people of exactly what it is that you do when there is no evidence that they've committed acts of racism.
To say you have arrived here in 1652 to formally colonize and steal our land is a historical fact. To say that you are passing and you are using South Africa as a refreshment station is a historical fact. So there's nothing to say that kill the boer, kill the farmer was sang in the struggle. It's a revolutionary song. It's a fact. Whether it can be sang now or not is for this court to decide. But I'm only putting to you historical facts. A thief is a thief.
Now, you showed video, your legal team has shown video of Thabo Mbeki explaining Kill the Boer. I'd like to reference his brother, Mobilization Mbeki's view. That's at page 207 of the book. It states, Mobilization Mbeki, political commentator and brother of former President Thabo Mbeki, responded saying that what Malema was doing was nothing more than a call for the slaughter of Afrikaners. This is in reference to singing Dibulu Bunu.
Who's that?
Moletsi Mbeki.
Is his opinion?
Yes. So,
Is his?
do you take it, in other words, that different people can have different opinions about what you're doing?
Well, Mbeki and Moeletsi, Thabo and Moeletsi have always had different contesting views on ideas.
Yes. So would you say, in other words, individuals can have different views on the same set of facts, different opinions, even if they're part of the
I've
same
said
race?
that all the time.
Even if they're both black?
Come again?
Even if they're both black? Even if
Yes.
they're both brothers? in
Yes.
fact? Yes.
Child.
Mr. Malema, the complainant has sought payment from the respondents in the sum of 500,000 rand, not to be paid to the complainant, but to be paid to an organization that combats racial hatred. Now, are you personally Mr. Ndlozi or the EFF able to make payment of this 500,000 rand if you were so ordered to do so?
Who's asking for payment?
The complainants in this case.
Afriforum.
Yes. Repayment made not to Afriforum, but to an organization that combats racial hatred of 500,000 rand. And I'm asking whether you personally, in other words, you're cited as a respondent personally, as is Mr. Ndlozi, as is the party itself, the EFF. So separately, are those different parties able to make payment, if so ordered, of 500,000 rand?
Each 500.
It's jointly and severally.
Okay. Tell them to pay reparations first. Then we can consider paying that.
If they
We have no money to pay. They must pay reparations first. Then we can enter into that debate.
all right, so
And
if
our reparation is nothing less than $5 trillion. That's what you owe us. You're asking money from people you stole from. You steal from people and still go and ask money from. You are the ones who are owing us. You have eaten a lot from our land, from our minerals.
The question is a simple one, which is if this court orders you, Mr. Ndlozi and the EFF, to pay 500,000 rand, will you pay it?
Well, we can't afford, my lord. We're being owed here. We can't afford.
Do you not have the money?
We can't afford, we don't have money. Give us money. You are owing us.
Can I ask you this? If your claim is you don't have money, I'll start with you first. Is your claim you could not personally afford to pay 500,000 rand?
Yes.
How much money do you have in your personal possession? What is your wealth?
I don't have nothing.
You have nothing.
Nothing.
Can they ask about the second case?
Your Lordship, I need say nothing.
Yes. Then I can move to the second. In other words, Mr. Ndlozi, if he was asked, required by this court to pay 500,000 rand.
Having to speak on behalf of Mr. Ndlozi. He's not here.
I think that's fair. Then I'll return just to the EFF itself, in which the witness was called to speak on behalf of.
Yes.
We don't have money.
So the EFF would be unable to pay the 500,000 rand.
We don't have money.
Just is a yes or no? You'd be able to pay it or not be able to pay it? Mr. Malema said that if they were ordered by this court,
He would comply.
they would comply. And so I'm asking a related question, which is if ordered by this court to make payment of 500,000 rand, would they be able to comply? And it might be evidence to say that we don't have 500,000 rand, and that might be a reason then for there not to be a different remedy.
Well, I thought before Mr. Siboto stands up, that that's an issue for argument.
Well, my lord, I would think that the evidence of their capacity to pay would
Okay.
be important to determine an argument.
Okay.
I just want to, if I understand the evidence, is that they don't have the capacity to pay the 500,000 rand.
Okay.
I'm just trying to pin that down.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Siboto.
Well, the answer lies in exactly what my learned friend has just said. The question of the ability to pay is a question for argument, and that's precisely the point. I don't see how we even get there. I mean, it's no different from asking if the court sentences you to a prison term, will you go to jail? How do we even get there? Question that the witnesses must deal with, a question on the merits. As to whether they can afford or not is a question that's later to be determined. And if they're in contempt, then we deal with the issue of contempt then.
Yes, well, my lord, it's a simple question. In other words, there's the enforcement mechanism. In other words, if this court so orders that those three respondents must pay 500,000 rand, there's the enforcement question. There's an argument about what the appropriate sum is. But I would think that part of determining whether that sum is appropriate is to determine affordability. Like in a maintenance case, one might ask one of the parties, can you afford to pay this amount?
I'm here. Are there no other risks that arises from wanting the witness to answer that question?
I don't understand, my lord.
I'm just saying, you saying, can you afford to pay? And if he says, no, I can't afford to pay, aren't there legal consequences that may arise from that answer?
Well, I would think that's a reason then to argue about what the amount ought to be. In other words, an argument, counsel can rely on that evidence and say, well, what's being sought is 500,000 rand. Mr. Malema stated he doesn't have 500,000 rand.
Yeah. Well, let's just get the witness to confirm what he's already said. Mr. Malema, you saying, firstly, yourself in person can't afford to pay the 500,000.
Yes.
You saying EFF cannot afford to pay the 500,000. That seems to be your answer, Mr. Oppenheimer.
Yes. Thank you
Yes.
for clarifying that.
And Mr. Ndlozi Shem, for sure books, he can give you books. Mr. Ndlozi.
Is it correct to say that you've publicly stated that all white people are criminals and ought to be treated as such?
Yes.
What does that mean?
The white system has stolen our land and has stolen our cattle and has stolen our minerals and natural resources, and all of that must be returned.
So if a person from America who happens to be white arrives in South Africa today, are they a criminal?
Americans are even worse because of their imperialism.
Let's say a white person from Russia arrives today. Are they a criminal?
Well, we're talking here about colonialism, imperialism, and apartheid, where the Russians responsible for that. Russia left the scramble of Africa in 1884 and 1885 without having a portion of African land. So why would I declare Russian people criminals? They didn't get anything out of the scramble for Africa. We're talking in the context of imperialism, colonialism, and apartheid.
So let's just get this clear then. In other words, a Russian person who arrives in South Africa today who is white is not a criminal.
No.
They're not a criminal. Now, and you were saying, in other words, an American would be a criminal because America is an imperialist body?
Yes.
Okay. So why make the claim that white people are criminals and white people must be held accountable as such,
You know-
when you've just said that there's a difference, we must go and look at their particular history, their particular lineage? Why just use the blanket term white?
You know, I've litigated with Afriforum and Roots before, and they've never brought someone so weak as you. I think they've done the worst disservice to themselves. Let me tell you, every time we say white settlers, white people, white settlers in South Africa, it is in that context. So why would an American who came yesterday, my lord, be a settler? We're talking here about white settlers. Why would a Russian who came yesterday be a settler? You understand very well the context within which we say all white people are racist. It is in relation to the struggle of liberation in South Africa against apartheid system that benefited all white people.
So who is a white settler?
All those who came here to come and conquer South Africa and take the land from our people
When?
are white settlers.
When?
From since 1652,
Up until when?
up until we took our freedom,
So up until
political freedom in 1994.
So let's just get that sense. In other words, anyone who is white, who is either born in South Africa after 94 or who arrived after 94 is not...
Who?
Anyone who is white, who arrives in South Africa after 1994, are they a white settler?
Anyone who arrives in South Africa to inherit the stolen property is a criminal.
I'm asking a simple question. You said to
I'm
me,
giving you a simple answer.
you said to me that you understand white settlers as everyone from 1652 up until the time of political power. Is that 1994?
Yes, 1994.
Now I'm asking you about people after that date.
Those who inherit the property stolen from us are criminals. So if you come from America with an intention to come and inherit a stolen property, you are a criminal.
Can I ask you one final question?
Yeah.
If it was the case that just one person was going to be influenced to murder someone after hearing you chant, kill the farmer, kill the Boer. It's a hypothetical case. If someone was to be influenced in that way, would that be a reason for you not to sing the song?
No, not at all. Anyone who engages in the killing of anyone because of my chant will not be influenced by my chant. That person will be driven by criminal mentality. It's an act of crime because my chant is not a command. It's exactly what it is. If I were to give that command, I will give it openly, unashamedly, without hiding my face. So there is no anyone who claims that he got a command through a song, that person will be acting out of their own sheer criminality and not because they've got a political motive. A system has to be something that we have designed collectively and said, this is how we're going to move in getting rid of white people. But individual actions that borders on criminality can never be construed to be a policy of the EFF or that of the South African government.
Two questions. The first is you said what we need is a system in place to get rid of white people. Is that correct?
Yes.
What would that mean to get rid of white people?
So if we go into a conference and we go or into parliament and make a constitutional amendment that all whites must be driven to the sea and any white who remains here is going to be killed, then we engage in that type of a program to drive all whites to the sea. It's an institutionalized decision, and that arises out of a particular collective decision.
You seem to have the same relationship with lawmaking that the Nazis had. The Nazis didn't just kill Jews.
Yeah.
They passed laws that allowed them to kill Jews. And you're saying that's how it ought to be done with regards to
That's
whites.
why the Nazis are still paying today. That's why the Germans are still paying today, my lord, because it was not an individual act. It was the law that was passed in Germany. Germany is still paying the price today. So therefore, more than beyond Hitler, it's a systematic thing.
And what you are proposing is to have exactly that kind of system, to pass a law to allow for white people to be driven into the sea and killed.
But that's not what I said, Mus. I said to you, for it to be a system, a constitution will have to be amended, or some resolution of some sort of an institution will have to be taken. Then engage in that program of driving whites to the sea. And if they refuse to go to the sea, then you kill them, right? And that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm saying to you the difference between the individual and the system is exactly what I'm talking about. No one is saying there's going to be passing of any law to drive whites to the sea. Let's stop daydreaming and listen to one another. Because I'm talking here, explaining to you individual and the system. All you do is to hallucinate.
I'm going to say something which is interesting. It seems that the more disorientated you get, the more rambling your testimony becomes. You lash out at me personally, accusing me of hallucinating or saying that I'm a bad lawyer.
You are a bad lawyer, Shem.
It
goes without saying.
Beg your pardon?
You are a bad lawyer.
Yes. The hypothetical that I asked you to consider was that if you knew that someone would be influenced by hearing the chant to go out and kill people, whether you would refrain from doing that. And your answer was that they could not be influenced. Now, if you saw that there was a risk that singing that song would have that effect on people, if you knew that there was the possibility that singing that song would lead to people killing others, would that chasten you? Would that stop you from singing it?
No. The singing of the song does not translate into law. So anyone who then takes our singing and engage in acts of crime will be violating the law, and the law must deal with them decisively.
Let me ask you this. If there was a risk in singing that song that you would cause psychological trauma, emotional pain of a severe nature to people who've been victims of farm attacks, would that stop you from singing the song?
If there was such a legitimate concern and not driven by a racist desire, then I will consider it. I'll consider it, definitely. I live and I coexist amongst our South Africans. There's no such a desire, there's no such a panic. It's a swart gevaar. We're dealing here with swart gevaar here.
The complainant has led evidence of someone whose wife was murdered in front of him and who's now paralyzed. He testified in this court. And he said whenever he hears that song, it brings back the memory of that day. He broke into tears in this court. That is trauma. That is legitimate trauma. Is your claim, does that trauma, does that evidence motivate you to stop singing the song?
No. You say nothing about the trauma of black people that I spoke about here.
I'm asking about
And
this
then you
trauma.
want
Let's
to
focus on that.
individualize the revolution. You are individualizing the whole thing. It can't be.
So that individual case would not move you?
No, I'm not moved, Shem. With people who are just fundraised in the farms, come, and then coached to come here and say wrong things. When they attacked, they were not singing the song. When they attacked, I didn't hear the evidence. Were they blasting the speakers in the house there singing the song?
The proposition
To
is
a
very
point where when she hears that song again, it traumatizes her. I will tell you what traumatizes our people. It's this stem. My Lord, I've got comrades who come from MK, who were underground, who tell me that when they were in Flag Plus, tortured and beaten, locked in those shacks that appeared like their cells, the Boers will be braaiing meat next to the shack, and when they get drunk, they sing this stem. While you are in pain, in hunger, the smell of the braai going through those cells, people drunkards singing outside this stem. Those are the people who are traumatized because they are being told officially, stand up and sing that song that was sang when you were being tortured. Can the Jews be asked to sing the Nazi song? Can the Jews be asked to sing a Hitler song? The answer is no. That's the trauma we're talking about. And the Jews will be correct not to agree to sing Hitler's song and the Nazi songs. But here in South Africa, we are made to sing the stem. Here in South Africa, Roots still raises the apartheid flag.
Now,
Despite the pronouncements of this court.
Here's what's interesting to me. I ask you a very simple question. I give you an actual case of someone who says...
I gave you an answer and I went beyond.
Yes.
You got what you wanted, but I'm also saying what I want to say.
I'd like to finish asking my
Yes.
question. Now, I've asked you a simple question which was respond to someone's legitimate pain and trauma. Your response is to say, I'm not moved by that. I think that person was coached. And then to change topic entirely and say, but my pain, destem, the national anthem. To say that, in other words, in 1994 it was agreed that we would have reconciliation, that we would heal the nation, that the national anthem contains many different languages in it, and you want to denounce that, and you want to use this as a platform to denounce the national anthem. But you will not respond to legitimate pain of someone who's been traumatized by hearing you chant, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. You want to change the topic.
I responded to that. You don't like my answer. I said I'm not moved.
Yes.
I said I'm not moved. Let me repeat 5 times. I'm not moved by that case you brought here. I am not moved. And if that will make me lose a case, let me lose it. I'm not moved. I'm moved by the pain of Africans who are being made to sing apartheid songs. This time, by the way, is not about Africans. We can find another version of Africans to put in the national anthem. The problem is not Africans. That's why, my Lord, I don't say we are traumatized by Africans. I'm saying we are traumatized by a song called Distem. That's what our trauma comes from, not Africans.
My Lord, I have no further questions.
Mr. Kasiboto, re-examination.
As the court pleases, my lord. Just by way of housekeeping, the first issue I'm going to deal with is the question of re-examination, and I literally have one question in that respect. Perhaps a proposition that the witness I would like to respond to. That's going to be the sum total of my re-examination. I don't know if the media can pick me up. They can't. Do you mind moving the microphones to this side? Is that it? Oh. Sorry, Your Lordship, just for the benefit of the public who wouldn't have heard what I said earlier, I said by way of housekeeping, what I'll do first is re-examine the witness on one aspect, just one aspect. The second will be, I will ask that my attorney plays a video in relation to what we discussed earlier about the quotas. And then finally, I'll deal with the video relating to Mr. Peter Mugabo, who's been a dramatis personae in this trial. Mr. Malema, the proposition was put to you when you were discussing the credibility of the book of Mr. Ernst Roets. You recall that?
Yep.
The proposition was, it's improbable that it is racist propaganda because it's got thousands of notes. Was that not the proposition?
Yeah.
There's a book called The Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. Do you know about it?
No.
The book, for your benefit, is said to be racist propaganda against the demographic,
Yes.
specifically the Jews. Now, if the argument is that this book, before this trial, can't be racist propaganda because of thousands of notes on it, would it not be interesting to see how many notes Mein Kampf has?
Absolutely.
Does the fact then that it's got thousands of footnotes negate the content of the book itself?
No.
Now, with that being said, let's deal with the first video. And the video, just for context, Mr. Malema, do you mind checking if this is connected there?
Which one?
This one.
Who is the person who's responsible? It's connected. It's going all the way up.
Okay. No, not yet. Now, just to orientate the court on what the video is. Yes. Yes. That's the proposition. It can't be an argument because for thousands of notes, it can't be racist propaganda. In the same way, the Mein Kampf has got thousands of notes, but it remains racist propaganda. Yes. Yes. Just to orientate the court, the video that we are about to publish is a video which we had promised to provide to this court earlier. We are discussing the issue of the quotas, the labor quotas, issues around Main Lane, Ocean Basket, and Cream in Mall of Africa. And the witness had promised that there's a video where he's shown to denounce the position that was taken by the leadership in Tshwane. And now this is the video that was so promised.
It should not be with the employees. No foreigner must be a target of assault by any of our people. And no any of our persons should speak 70%, 90% South Africans. That is the kind of madness we don't want to hear from an EFF leadership. All.
Will.
Just hold on. Can you confirm that is you in the video?
Yes.
And it's in response to the video that was played earlier?
Yes. And that is a public press conference. If you see, there's an SABC microphone. So we're condemning it publicly through the press.
Very well. Let's move to the second video. Again, for the benefit of the court.
Under. No. Yeah.
The second video is a video of Mr. Peter Mukaba. The second video is a video of Mr. Peter Mukaba, and he is dealing with the question of what does the song Kill the Boer mean? Now, this is important, and I'm going to ask you to confirm a couple of things. This is just for context. This is an important video. It is important because absent any evidence to the contrary, and we'll submit in due course, there's no evidence to the contrary, 4 people will testify to this exact same version. And it's not 4 people that don't matter. The witness has confirmed this version. Second, the former President Thabo Mbeki, who is the leader of the ANC and was ingrained within the ANC pre-94, confirms this version. We've got the witness who confirms this version. What we'll have tomorrow is Professor Elizabeth Garner, who's going to confirm the same version. Now, I'm going to ask that the video be played, and then we can ask the witness to comment.
We sang about Hambaka Kimkoto, and we pointed out in a song that we're determined to kill the Boers. That is the literal sense. But that has never been policy of the ANC. The question of Boer has changed in content on the basis of the realities of the situation in our policy. It has always meant the enemy as a system of white supremacy and has never meant any individual on the basis of this or that color. And even as we chanted these slogans during the armed struggle, they have never driven us to the houses of the whites or to the farmers as individuals to kill them. Now, what has changed?
Now, thanks. 2 things are quite apparent to me from that video. The first is that the person whom the song is pinned on, because there's a lot of evidence that was led in relation to Mr. Peter Mukaba singing the song. And then there was an attack on him, and a link was drawn between him and you.
Speaks for himself from his grave, that this has given him an opportunity to once more clarify the racist who want to paint him as a racist and unreasonable leader, that he has never advocated for violence against any individual. We've always engaged in a struggle against a white racist system.
Yes. The second striking thing to me about this video is what he says later. He says, even at the time when we're in armed struggle, the singing of that song has never led us to invading Afrikaner houses and killing them. Can you confirm that's the version you heard?
Absolutely. And at that time, my lord, they had weapons. They were in underground. They were well armed. There were units operating all over. They could have done it if they wanted to do it. But because they understood that it is not meant in a literal sense, they've never engaged in those types of activities. Their political foundation and political consciousness and what they wanted to achieve made them to understand that carrying of a gun and singing of the song does not necessarily mean you must go into people's houses. Our leaders were not criminals. They were political leaders. They were well armed, ready to shoot and kill, but always believed that there should be an engagement to avoid a possible war.
Yes. There's one last aspect that I want you to comment on. He says, at the height of apartheid itself, where possibly, and now I'm drawing conclusions, you
Yes.
tell me if that's not the interpretation you have. At the height of apartheid, we had a situation where we were confronted by the oppression. Even then, we did not kill. We still maintain that position post the end of apartheid. And if that has always been the attitude, what has suddenly changed? Because as I understand it, the case before this court is that something must have changed from that philosophy. Do you perhaps know what has changed?
Nothing has changed, my lord. Mugaba's argument is that we sang these songs at a point when we were angry, at a point when we saw our comrades falling, being shot by the apartheid system. Even with those dead bodies in Sharpeville, in Langa, and everywhere else, armed with weapons, we still did not invade white people's houses. Now we exist in a period of a relative peace where it is not charged like it was charged that time, where we were armed. Now we are not even armed. We were armed that time. We were singing this song. We did not invade white people's houses. We are not armed. And we are continuing to sing the songs that we were singing when we were angry, burying our own comrades. I mean, you can imagine when you attend a mass funeral, where you bury 20 people at the same time, and majority of the combatants there are angry and they are armed. But because they are not thugs and they've got political education and they appreciate the nature of the struggle we are waged in, they've never resorted to violence. Now we're not armed. Now there are no dead bodies in front of us. All we do is to sing struggle songs to remind ourselves of where we come from and where we are going. People want to ban the song. Yes. Our struggle is not hate. Our struggle has never been hate. Apartheid is hatred.
And I apologize for interrupting you. Just so then I understand in conclusion, the suggestion is that if at the height of apartheid, at your angriest and potentially entitled to act violently in defiance of the unlawful system,
yes,
you did not kill people and were not led by the song to kill people.
Absolutely.
Now, the suggestion is that, well then, why would you start now when you are less angry and unarmed? Is that the suggestion?
And when we are also in government, why would we kill now? The MK's philosophy has always been that we do not target soft targets. It has always been a principle. Only when you find yourself at a compromised position where you had to now shoot to kill what could appear as a soft target. But when MK infiltrated the country at that time, instructions have always been very clear. We do not attack soft targets. And the farmers, as individuals, would have been the easiest and the soft targets, because when you enter the country, you go through the farms. There's never been massive killing of farmers by Mkhonto Wesizwe or Apla or any of the armed wing of the struggle, because they understood that ours is not individuals, it's but a system of apartheid.
Thank you, Mr. Malema. No further questions.
I heard you at the beginning saying that South Africa is now a class of its own. A class of its own. The working class is a class of its own.
Yes, yes.
Have they reached there? I thought Marx said the certain stages that you've got to reach to classify the working class as a class in its own.
Well, we have not necessarily arrived there. We are working towards there, but the preposition I was putting was... Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, yes. Yes. Those are stages. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes.
You said the whole process started in 1652. It went on, and it just said now that we're not targeting individual farmers. That's one of the issues I wanted to raise, but you've now answered that. But you then also say that whites have naturalized, they form a group within the South African society.
Yes.
And thus their concern needs to be taken into account. So you recognize that they are part of the South African society.
Absolutely, my lord, but it doesn't take away the fact that they came as visitors.
Yes.
They might have naturalized, that's number one. Number two is that if they are white concerns, we really have to take them into consideration.
Yes.
And I don't think the applicant represent the white concerns.
Okay. And then you also mentioned that the period prior to the Constitution coming into place, so in your categorization of history, you also recognize that then came the period of the Constitution.
Yes.
Which would then change also the context in which things happened prior to 1994.
Yes.
The approach and the attitude that would have been adopted by the groupings as they were involved in the struggle.
Well, in the characterization of who are the settlers in relation to the stolen land,
Yes.
my argument is that all those who inherited the stolen property remain in possession of illegal goods, and that makes them the land thieves. But we should take into consideration that there was 1994 political breakthrough, and therefore in every time we engage on these issues, we must be alive to that fact.
Okay. So in other words, what happened before 1994 when there was an armed struggle,
Yes.
and what happened thereafter, the context changes in terms of the engagement.
You can't use the same method. The format of the struggle and the nature of how it's going to be waged, it has to change.
Yes.
Hence, President Mandela in the 90s called for the suspension of armed struggle to give way for the negotiations.
Yes. So you're saying after the 1994, even though you obtained political independence, the struggle still continues.
Absolutely.
And the method used in the struggle prior to 1994 would be different to the struggle now that's been used after 1994 in the Constitution.
Absolutely. It must be within the confines of the Constitution. And that which you want to advance and you think it doesn't find an expression in the Constitution, you will rather call for the amendment of the Constitution to include the issues that you seek to tackle.
Okay. And then you also said that in as far as shoot is concerned, what you really mean is shoot the system.
Yes.
Not the individuals.
Yes.
And then the farmers are used in the chanting as part of the system of dispossessing blacks of the land.
No, the word farmer, it was used in the context of giving the struggle a face. So when you say, for instance, reconciliation, the first face that comes into your mind is President Mandela. So every struggle gets to be given a face. Because it's a struggle for land, then the people who are in the immediate related to the land is the farmers. And that's why the usage of the farmer, not necessarily the individual, but as a face that represents the system that dispossessed us of our land.
Yes. And you say that you sang the song prior to 1994.
Yes.
When you were very angry.
Yes.
And at that time, the various military organs of political parties could have actually used force and violence because they had arms with them.
Yes.
Now, if we say in that context, the song was sung to, you say it was not an instruction, but could it be said it was sung to mobilize?
Yes.
It was sung to
That's
mobilize.
what the song is about.
And if we say it was sung to mobilize, that really gets people activated.
Yes.
And it could actually lead to a situation where you said the agent provocateur could go out there and do what you did not anticipate them doing.
They have not done it, my Lord, throughout. At a point when the anger was at an unmanageable level.
They didn't do
They've
it.
never done it. Why will they do it now, my Lord? When they are in a relative peaceful environment where there's a democratic political dispensation and they are the courts, if you are offended, there are all types of recourses that you can engage in to deal with whatever makes you angry. So I don't think now even room exists for agent provocateurs to use the sword to want to justify their actions.
And now, if you said you recognize that the white farmers would be a group that exists in the South African society, and if they are concerned, and I don't want us to go into the issue of those who are racist, but just if they are concerned, those concerned, if they're genuine, they may need to be attended to.
Well, we have to be sensitive to them.
Yes. Now,
And equally, we ought to be sensitive to those who sing the song.
Yes. If for argument's sake, there's a group of farmers that, and I'll use a hypothetical case. If there is a group of white farmers that are known to be committed to the new dispensation, the constitutional system, but they come to EFF and say, we're scared when we hear this song being sung. What would be your view on that?
We'll tell them they've got no reason to be scared, because this song was sang at a point when our people were extremely angry and they've never attacked any farm. And now they are singing it now in a very relative, peaceful South Africa, where people have come to embrace the principle of reconciliation and coexistence. So they've got no reason, none whatsoever, to be worried about. Because, my Lord, if they are going to be sensitive to the struggle songs, then they will have to be sensitive to all the struggle songs. Because all of them talk about killing, all of them talk about guns, all of them talk about all manner of violence. Unfortunately, we never sang songs of love in the struggle. There's no single one. If any, there is a one that I hate, which makes us look like victims when we've got warriors who came before us. That one of Senzenina, Senzenina. You know Wenzeni. Why are you asking the question Wenzenina? So I don't like that one, because it creates an impression of victimhood. We're children of warriors. We're not victims. We can fight our own battles. So majority of the songs, unfortunately, my Lord, they speak violence, they speak guns, they speak about boas.
But the songs that were sung, in particular also this song, it has certain meaning to those who are involved in the struggle, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
So it was in fact sending some message of some sort.
Yes.
Because you said the song as sung did not necessarily mean an instruction, but
Yes.
it had some meaning, it had some weight to those who were singing and to those who were involved in the struggle.
Its meaning, my Lord, is the attack on the white system. Let's not make mistake about it. It's not like we're just singing in jail. We were singing with a clear conscience in our mind that if opportunity prevails, we will bomb the union building. And that's what the system is about. The union building is at the core of that system at that time. So that was very clear in the mind of those who sang the song.
Yes. But there were some of the songs, and I know it's not been raised here, but just out of interest, there were some songs which were sung, as I say, that were sending a message, for example, or in fact recording some kind of a historical event, like Dobole Bunula se Angola.
Yes.
Wasn't that the song that actually recorded what came to be known as a kind of a defeat of the
They were
South African
celebrating Kutokonaval.
Carnival, that's
Yes.
right. But there was also a song which was saying, just before Mandela was released, which said, Oliver Tambo talked to Botha to release Mandela.
Yes.
So in these songs, it seems to me there is some message that's been sent there.
Yes.
And am I correct to say those messages were carried significant weight in that song when it was sang, I would have thought somehow there was concern that there may be rebellion to say negotiate or enter into discussions with the government.
Not like you said, my Lord, they were used to mobilize.
Yes.
We were mobilized using the song to mobilize our people. And I said to one of the councils earlier that we also use the song to politicize. So you try find nice melody to politicize our people because, my Lord, there are people who, some are not good at staying at meetings and listening. Some are not good at reading. So you use the song to reach to them and then use them, agitate, mobilize, and then take them to the picket lines. So the Dubuli Bunila se Angola fits very well into the argument we presented earlier on about the chants. That the chants gets to change from time to time to accommodate certain political epoch we find ourselves or that could have come to pass before us.
Just this issue of the distinction between chant and a song.
Yes.
Just explain to me what the difference. I couldn't follow.
You see, I'm not an expert of these things of songs, but I know that when we sing the song you just sang about Botha release Mandela, Kululu Mandela, we know what's going to follow after this and all of that. But the chants are what a leader who's leading a song changes from time to time to describe a certain political epoch in society. President Mbeki tries in that video to deal with it, that they don't represent necessarily a song, because a song must have its own proper melody, the lyrics. So if someone has got a song now, my Lord, and you hear about it on radio, you can simply go on Google and say, I want the lyrics of this song. They are going to come like that. But you can't find the lyrics of a chant.
Well, isn't the difference there also the question of the way that certain cultures, some people call them dominant cultures, have approached culture, in that generally in the Western world, songs are recorded, they are given titles and names, but in the African culture, often songs just comes from, I would say, from nowhere. A big song could be sung that you've never thought of, but it still remains a song.
Well, in Africa, a song can come from anywhere, informed by the prevailing material conditions. I mean, now there is a song sang by people in the villages celebrating 350 grant of Cyril Ramaphosa. They thank him in that song that is giving them 350. So it's a song to respond to the current development. But with the chants, I think if we want to help the courts, we may want to find some professor in music who can explain where the chants come from, because I was told when we were young that this song that we're singing of the chants originate from Zimbabwe, actually. It was sang by the Zebra forces and the Zangla forces during the time of the struggle. I'm not sure, but the issue of the chants has got some roots in Zimbabwe as well.
But whatever difference may exist between a song and a chant, they both represent a kind of a communication, a kind of a statement.
Yes, yes.
You would accept that?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Any question arising from a question, Mr. Kasiboto?
Yes, Your Lordship. I'm grateful that the witness has qualified his responses to the very last question in particular, that perhaps we need an expert on this, because the expert we're calling tomorrow is an expert on African languages and music. And she's going to deal specifically with the question of what a song is, what a statement is, where one is directive, instructive, and commanding and requires reaction to it. Whereas a song or a chant refers to something else, something akin to what the witness testified to. So when Your Lordship is taking notes, it's with that qualifier that an expert will actually give proper detail on it.
No further questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Just, sorry, my Lord, I'm so sorry. Your Lordship, I'm so sorry. As per our discussions yesterday, the understanding was Mr. Oppenheimer would take up until the end of today. Because the professor is quite busy, we'd ask that she comes tomorrow instead. So with Your Lordship's permission, can we adjourn until tomorrow, then resume at 10 with the expert witness? We intend to finish tomorrow. Indeed.
Okay, thank you.